Buongiorno a tutti, io sono Mark.
E io sono Carolina.
Come stai, Carolina?
Tutto bene, Mark, e tu?
Benissimo, grazie. We are delighted to be with you today for a live broadcast where we're focusing on a particular grammar point. And that grammar point is?
It is the pronoun ne.
The pronoun ne. A really useful little word. Now, we are broadcasting on YouTube, we're broadcasting on Facebook, so let us know where you're watching from. Let us know if you're watching live. Of course, you're more than welcome to watch this as a recorded version after the event, but hopefully you're watching live and you'll be able to follow along. We're also going to be talking about the Coffee Break Italian Masterclass today, but that will come a little later. Let's double check that everything is working according to plan. Let's check that we've got our slides here. That probably isn't the right part. Let's just double check what's going on here. There we go. Let's see. A few little technical hitches as we get started here, but not to worry. There we are. I think we should now be ready to go with this. Okay, so what is a pronoun? Well, what is a pronoun? Pronouns are words that we use to replace other words. Ultimately, they stand for nouns. That's what it means, pronoun.
Exactly. See.
There are lots of different types of pronouns in Italian. For example, we've got subject pronouns. That would be an example, io.
Io o tu.
And so on. We've got direct object pronouns, things like I want the book, do you see it?
Esattamente, voglio il libro, lo vedi?
So lo, there is our direct object pronoun. We've got indirect object pronouns like gli and le, I speak to him.
That would be gli parlo, to him, a lui.
We've got reflexive pronouns, so these are the kind of words that we use when we're talking about reflexive verbs like I wash myself.
Exactly, mi lavo.
Mm-hmm. And then we've got possessive pronouns, like it's mine, it's yours, and all that kind of thing.
Yes, è mio, è tuo.
And we've also got disjunctive pronouns, a little more complex, those ones. They're the ones that are slightly, they're used for emphasis and so on. But we'll not go into those ones just now. The thing is, today we're talking about a group of pronouns. We're talking about one in particular, but these ones always go together, don't they?
Yes, they do. And they also combine at times.
Exactly. So we've got ci and ne. And if you're a learner of Italian, you'll be very familiar with these pronouns, I'm sure. But the one that we're focusing on, and as I said, is ne. So, Carolina, can you tell us a little about ne? What's the function of ne?
Sì, so ne is a very versatile pronoun in Italian, Mark, because it doesn't really have a direct equivalent in English. It remains unchanged normally, and typically it translates and it replaces something like of it or of them.
Okay, and you said something crucial there. You said it doesn't have an equivalent in English, and very often we don't actually hear it in English, and we're going to see some examples of this today. So let's begin with an example. Do you want to read this example? Puoi leggerle?
Certamente. Mi piacciono le mele, ne mangio una ogni giorno.
So, mi piacciono le mele. I like apples, okay? Ne mangio una ogni giorno. So let's think about what's happening here. We could say mangio una mela ogni giorno, couldn't we?
Absolutely, but this would be a bit, a repetition.
Redundant, yeah,
yes, redundant.
Yeah.
Yes.
So here we're replacing le mele with ne, but there's something else that goes along with it, una.
Una, exactly, because we use ne when we talk about quantities. So every time we use ne, this means that after we need to have a quantity, a sort of reference of how much or how many in this case. So mi piacciono le mele, ne mangio una ogni giorno. I eat one of them.
Exactly. So ne is standing for of them, and then we've, as Carolina said, we've got to get that quantity in. Ne mangio una ogni giorno. So I like apples. I eat one of them every day. Now, in English, would we say I eat one of them?
No, that's why ne is quite interesting and important.
Because ultimately in English we'd be more likely to say I eat one every day.
Exactly.
We don't need the ne. But of course, when we're translating from English into Italian, that's when it gets more complicated because we forget that we need to mention the of them,
Of them.
the quantity.
Yes.
Let's look at another example. You want to read it?
Sì. Mangi molta carne? No, non ne mangio molta.
So, do you eat a lot of meat? No, non ne mangio molta. No, I don't eat a lot of it.
Of it, again.
So here, ne is not of them, but it's of it. So another alternative translation of ne.
Yes.
But again, in English, we could say, no, I don't eat much, as in I don't eat much meat. One of the things that I think learners often find difficult is the difference, in a sense, between ne and the direct object pronoun. Because you might think, do you eat meat? No, I don't eat it.
Yes.
So can we say not non la mangio?
Yes, you can say this, but in this case, we are asked about how much, basically. Mangi molta carne, so do you eat much meat? So if you say, no, non la mangio, this means I don't eat meat. But we are saying here something different. I don't eat much of it. So it's just a different kind of information that we want to give.
Yeah, good. Okay. So far, so good. Hopefully everything is making sense. Another situation is when we use ne with the verbs pensare or parlare. Why is that?
That's because, as we said, like ne replaces of it or about it in this case. So pensare and parlare are both verbs that work, that are followed normally by the preposition di. So parlare di qualcosa, to talk about something, of something, or pensare di qualcosa, what you think about something, of something. So in this case, che cosa ne pensi would be
what do you think of it, or what do you think about it? So here the ne is of it or about it. And I think we've got another example with parlare.
Yes. Ho visto il film ieri e ne ho parlato con Giulia. We also have the passato prossimo here.
Certo.
So, yes, I watched the film yesterday and I talked about it with Giulia. And notice how the ne is placed before the verb, also in this case, exactly in the same placement we would have for direct object pronouns and indirect object pronouns.
Okay, so ho visto il film ieri, I saw the film yesterday, e ne ho parlato con Giulia, and of it I spoke, or I have spoken with Giulia. So here we're seeing ne, about it, or of it. We could say both would work. Tutto bene? Sì,
direi di sì, tutto a posto.
One more example, and this is getting a little more complex, okay? So hopefully everything's making sense so far. Just look at this one carefully. Do you want to read this one, Carolina?
Certo. C'era una promozione sulle pere e ne ho prese 10.
Right. C'era una promozione sulle pere. So there was a promotion, a special offer on the pears. E ne ho prese 10. So, and of them I have taken, I bought 10. But what's going on with prese?
Yes, here, like, we are using the passato prossimo, so we have a past participle, and in this case, ne would still mean of them, but in this case, we need to have the agreement in place with what this them is. In this case, ne ho prese 10 of them, of the pears, delle pere, e quindi ne ho prese 10.
So, le pere are feminine plural.
Exactly.
Therefore, we need the feminine plural ending on the past participle.
Esattamente.
Normally, it would be preso, but here it becomes prese because we're referring to le pere. C'era una promozione sulle pere e ne ho prese 10.
Esattamente.
Carolina, I've got something to admit here. I make this mistake all the time. I always forget to make this agreement with ne. And as a learner, I know that I shouldn't be making that mistake. But yeah.
È normale, it's quite normal because sometimes it's also ambiguous when you have like different, like especially with quantities. So it can happen that this is like the agreement is not in place.
You're making me feel better. Okay, so ne ho prese 10, so again, of them, sulle pere, of them, referring back to the pears. Here's another example talking about sweets or candy.
Hanno mangiato tante caramelle? Sì, ne hanno mangiate davvero troppe.
So there we've got lots of agreements going on. Hanno mangiato tante caramelle. So have they eaten lots of sweets, lots of candies? Sì, ne hanno mangiate davvero troppe. So troppe has to agree, but also mangiate has to agree because of the ne.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes, we are still talking about caramelle, so feminine, plural,
Yep.
and therefore we have this agreement in place.
Good. Okay. All good. Now, I think, if I'm not mistaken, we've got... Oh, I love this one. Oh, che bello.
Finalmente.
So, let's look at this one. Quanto formaggio hai comprato? So, how much cheese have you bought?
Ne ho preso un etto.
So, I have, or of it, I have taken, or I've bought, un etto.
Un etto.
Cos'è un etto?
Un etto is typically what you would ask for when you are in Italy, like doing shopping for formaggio or affettati, salame. Un etto is like 100 grammi,
Yes,
100
so 100
grams.
grams.
Yes.
I don't know how many ounces that is. I'm not very good at ounces. But yeah, a little bit of cheese.
In Italia, un
In
etto.
Italia, un etto. So again, we've got a quantity here. It's un etto. It's not a number, but it's still representing the answer to how much.
How much?
Okay, and the ne is referring back to that. Okay.
Molto bene.
I've got a question for you then. If you're watching this, how are things going so far? We've been talking about ne, and hopefully you've understood things to this point. But what I'd like you to do is in the comments, let us know whether you're completely confused by pressing 1 or typing 1. If some bits are making sense, type 2. And if everything is good so far, then type 3. And we'll get a little idea here as to whether it's making sense and whether we can continue on. Tutto a posto per te?
Tutto a posto.
Perfetto. Okay, well, we'll see in the comments here whether everything is making sense for our viewers. Our viewers who are joining us from all over. We've got viewers from Norfolk, from Washington State, Southwest Washington State. We've got Tanya in Brazil. We've got Faye in Austria. And the good news is we've got lots of 3s.
Oh.
So 3 means all good so far. That looks good. Okay. Super Weapons is asking, can you clarify more on etto? So I think this viewer just wants to know a little more about the word etto. Obviously, there's no translation in English for that because it's a specific amount in Italian.
It's like how we measure like grams. It's like ettogrammo, if I'm correct.
Okay.
So like just to shorten it, like for kilogrammo, we would say kilo. We say un etto is like un ettogrammo. It would stand for it. It's just a quantity that we use in like when we shop for things. So.
And it's much easier than buying a kilo of cheese.
Assolutamente.
That would be quite heavy to carry home.
Troppo.
Okay, so let's continue and we'll come back to our slides here and make sure that everything is going okay. We've got a challenge for you now. Your turn. What we'd like you to do is translate this sentence, and we'll give you a little time to think about it. The sentence is, do you watch Italian TV series? And then you've got to give the answer to, yes, I watch many of them. So you need to think about the of them because, yeah, I watch many. That's fine in English, but of them really helps us remind ourselves which pronoun we're looking for in there. So take a little while to think about that, and then we'll have a look to see your answers, which will be coming in on the chat. Susan's saying she's not sure about the agreement of the verb. Maybe we can go back through that in a moment and just look at another example. But we'll see how things go. Andrea's joining us from Florida. Jacqueline from Firenze. Very nice. Enyo from Saskatchewan in Canada. Clarina from Indonesia. Fantastic. Kim from Florida. People from all over the world joining us today. This is brilliant. Okay, so perhaps just while we're waiting on some answers, let's talk a little more about that agreement of the verb. So the verb in particular we're talking about is a past participle.
Yes.
And we often see past participles agreeing. For example, if I said I got up, mi sono alzato, what would you say?
mi sono alzata instead.
So we've got an agreement of that past participle, which is happening with a reflexive pronoun in that sense. But we also see it here with the ne, and the ne is what triggers that agreement. And so it's going to depend on the thing that you're buying or seeing or watching or whatever.
Yes, that's because we are still talking about a pronoun. So when it comes to pronouns, we know that also with other pronouns, direct object ones, whenever we have the past participle, this needs to take on the agreement. So we are doing more or less the same thing that we do for direct object pronouns. For example, ho mangiato le mele. Le ho mangiate. Okay,
I ate them.
Exactly. So in this case, we are not saying them, we are saying of them. So, but the them should be still like the same one that you would, like the word that we are replacing, basically. So, yes, although we have avere as our auxiliary, we still need to remember the agreement in this case.
Good. Okay, we've got some answers.
Oh.
So we have Karen saying ne guardo molto. We've also got, I'm not quite sure who these answers are coming from, to be honest, because it's coming in a little bit of a muddle. Non le guardo mai. Non ne guardo mai. Ne guardo molte. So do you want to comment on any of these?
So, like, ne guardo molte would be the correct answer in this case. So, ne guardo molte, why is that? Because we are using our, the pronoun ne in this case, so placed before the verb. Sì, ne guardo molte. Well done for writing molte, because we are talking about le serie TV italiane, so it's feminine plural. Actually, if we say non le guardo mai, this is still correct, because we are saying I don't watch them. I don't watch them. I never watch them. So again, like the direct object pronoun le in this case is correct, but if we want to say of them, we need to use ne instead, which is actually also easier because it's invariable, so we don't need to remember masculine, feminine. So
indeed. Incidentally, if your answer is no, non le guardo mai, that's not good. You need to be watching some Italian series.
Sì, è vero, è vero.
any
Aiutano, they would help.
Indeed. So there is the official translation. Guardi le serie TV italiane? Do you watch Italian TV series? Sì, ne guardo molte. Yes, I watch many of them. And we hope that makes sense as to why it's ne guardo molte as opposed to le guardo molte, because we're talking about this quantity. We've got the molte in there. Okay, so
molto
far
bene.
so good. Molto bene, molto bene. All right. Someone's asking, can you define agreements? Agreements is when the ending of a word, like a past participle, agrees with the subject and therefore the gender and number.
Exactly.
So, for example, if we talk about an adjective can agree. We can talk about a white house.
Una casa bianca.
A white book.
Un libro bianco.
Okay, so we change the ending there. It agrees with the gender of the word. In this case, casa being feminine and libro being masculine. And of course, we also have plural agreements. So maybe we could talk about red books.
Libri rossi.
So rossi, our I ending there is the masculine plural. Or if we were talking about, I don't know, blue shoes.
Oh, scarpe blu. In this case, we cannot really see
Azzurre.
the agreement. Azzurre, yes, light blue. Here we can clearly see the agreement. So the fact that not always they show the same ending, because it depends, but what we mean with agreement is that they agree in gender and number.
Okay, perfetto. Okay, now we're going to do a quick listening activity here, and this is where Carolina is going to read a passage, and we're not going to show you the text on the screen, but we're going to go through it afterwards. So Carolina will read it first, see how much you understand, and then we'll go through it together afterwards. Va bene?
Benissimo.
Ok, dai.
Una giornata al mercato. Ieri sono andato al mercato con mia sorella. C'erano molte bancarelle che vendevano frutta fresca e ne volevamo provare un po'. Ho comprato delle mele, ma non sapevo quante prenderne. Alla fine ne ho prese 5. Mia sorella, invece, ha comprato delle fragole e ne ha mangiate subito alcune. Al ritorno a casa le ho chiesto se avesse bisogno di qualcos'altro e lei mi ha detto che aveva finito il pane. Quindi sono tornato al mercato per comprarne un po'. Purtroppo, quando sono arrivato dal fornaio, non ce n'era più.
Ok, molto interessante.
Una storia interessante, mercato all'italiana proprio.
Certo. Okay, so what we're going to do now is do exactly the same, because that was quite fast and quite difficult to pick up, because there was lots of nays, lots of agreements and so on in there.
Absolutely.
What I think we should do now is listen with the text in front of us, and then we'll go through it together and talk about some of the interesting language there. Okay, a minute?
Sì.
Okay, so here's the first part of the text.
Ieri sono andato al mercato con mia sorella. C'erano molte bancarelle che vendevano frutta fresca e ne volevamo provare un po'. Ho comprato delle mele, ma non sapevo quante prenderne. Alla fine ne ho prese 5.
Okay, so that's the first part. Let's go on.
Mia sorella, invece, ha comprato delle fragole e ne ha mangiate subito alcune. Al ritorno a casa le ho chiesto se avesse bisogno di qualcos'altro e lei mi ha detto che aveva finito il pane. Quindi sono tornato al mercato per comprarne un po'. Purtroppo, quando sono arrivato dal fornaio, non ce n'era più.
Okay. So let's go through this text together. We'll explain the meaning and focus on those ne and the agreements that happen around them. So, ieri sono andato al mercato con mia sorella. Yesterday I went to the market with my sister. C'erano molte bancarelle, so these are the stands in the market,
stands, yes.
che vendevano frutta fresca, which were selling fresh fruit. Sounds delicious. E ne volevamo provare un po'. And we wanted to try a little.
A little, yes.
Of
or
what?
Some
Some
of them. Exactly.
Yeah. So un po', some ne of them. So we wanted to try some of those fruits. Ho comprato delle mele, ma non sapevo quante prenderne. I bought some apples, but I didn't know how many. There's a quantity here, so there's going to be a ne. Quanto prenderne, how many to take of them.
Of them.
So note that the ne sticks on to the end of the infinitive, just like we'd see lo or mi or other pronouns.
Absolutely. All the other, like all the pronouns can actually attach to the verb when it is in its infinitive form.
Of course, yeah.
Ovviamente. So this happens with verbs like supporting other infinitive verbs, like modal verbs.
Yep.
And in this case, in questo caso, cosa abbiamo detto? Non sapevo quante prenderne, so I didn't know how many
Okay.
to take.
Alla fine, at the end, or in the end, ne ho prese 5. I took, or I bought 5 of them. So the prese refers back to the mele, feminine plural ending there, because the ne is coming before.
Yes, agreement also in here.
Good. Okay, let's continue on. Mia sorella, invece, my sister on the other hand, ha comprato delle fragole. She bought some strawberries. E ne ha mangiate subito alcune.
Yes.
And she immediately ate some of them.
Of them.
Okay, so
yes.
alcune there, the quantity word, and it's linked to ne. She immediately ate some of them. And we also see the mangiate,
the agreement, and also alcune, of course.
Certo.
Some.
Al ritorno a casa, on getting back to the house, le ho chiesto se avesse bisogno di qualcos'altro. I asked her if she needed something else. E lei mi ha detto che aveva finito il pane. And she told me that she had finished the bread. Quindi sono tornato al mercato per comprarne un po'. And so I went back to the market to buy some of it.
Some of it. Absolutely.
Purtroppo, quando sono arrivato dal fornaio, non ce n'era più. However, when I got to the baker's, non ce n'era più. Can you explain this a little? Because this is interesting.
Yes. So this means that when I got to the baker, actually we have dal fornaio here at the bakery, there was none left. None of it left. So notice how in this sentence here we have the combination of c'è and ne. So ci and ne in this case. So this means there was, we use it when we want to say that there wasn't or there was something, of course. And we also, we can also see the spelling change in this case because of the pronunciation. And also the apostrophe used to avoid the clash between these two vowels. So non c'è n'era. So these two can actually combine in cases like this.
Yeah. Perfect. We so often hear that with Italian, that the spelling changes slightly just to make it sound even more beautiful.
Exactly. Yes.
It sounds beautiful already, but it sounds even more beautiful
Yes.
with the nice links. Now, there's
Più
one word.
musicale, più musicale.
Certo.
Più bello.
There's one word in here that I think some of our learners might be wondering about, and it's avesse. It's a tricky word. It's part of...
It's a tricky
concept.
verb, a tricky concept.
It's actually a subjunctive, a special kind of verb. And if you've not come across this before, don't worry. It is something that everyone comes across and everyone learns at a certain point. And it's also something that we cover in great detail in the masterclass. But I'll be telling you more about the masterclass momentarily. Okay, so far so good. Karen is saying that she watches Montalbano.
Oh.
Good series there, Karen. Well done.
Ottima scelta. Ottima serie.
A little review. The pronoun ne, then. The purpose is to replace quantities. It conveys the idea of it, or of them, or about it, about them, depending on the context in English. And of course, in English, very often we don't see it, therefore we've got to pay particular attention to this. But we need to remember also to use it with the verbs parlare and pensare. When it's parlare di qualcosa, pensare di qualcosa. Tutto bene?
Tutto bene.
Okay.
Perfetto.
Now, I hope that this has all made sense. Once again, I'll ask you, are you confused? If so, put 1 in the comments. If some of it's making sense, put 2. And if everything has made sense so far, put 3 in the comments. And that will hopefully help us know where we're going from here. Now, what we're going to do now is talk a little about the masterclass and really taking it further. And what I would like to suggest is if you have any questions about the masterclass or indeed what we've covered today, then please post them in the chat. Carolina will keep an eye on that while I explain a little about the masterclass. So basically, sorry, I pressed the wrong button there. There we go.
Il bello della diretta, we say in Italian.
Esatto. Let's talk a little then about our masterclass, our Coffee Break Italian Masterclass, and how you can take what you've learned today a little further, indeed how you can take your Italian generally further. So the Italian Masterclass is made up of monthly modules, and there are 6 monthly modules which happen over the course of the next 6 months. These are short, regular sessions every few days, and of course it's structured learning, so you're really focusing on moving forward with what you're learning and the idea of focusing on different topics, building on them, progressive structured learning. There's audio content, there's text content, and there's video review for each module. And of course, this is all about coffee break learning. So everything is straightforward, it's simple, it's friendly, it's fun, and it's not turn to page 37 and write out that paragraph multiple times. Now, the whole idea, obviously, is that it's about coffee break length. What do we mean by coffee break learning? Well, coffee break length, if you've got 15 minutes, then you can do a coffee break lesson. It's about coffee break style, friendly, fun, as I've said already, and pedagogically sound, of course, and coffee break quality, because everything that we do, we've put a huge amount of work into it, and we want to make sure that it is the absolute best quality of learning materials that you can have. The curriculum of the masterclass is built around these 6 modules. So we've got a first module on tense mastery, where we're covering lots of different tenses and really helping you build your ability to use different tenses in Italian. We then look at advanced structures, things like the si passivante and the si impersonale, looking at other elements that really will help you sound more Italian and more exact when you speak in Italian. We'll have a module on pronouns, and we'll be looking more at ne and ci and all these other pronouns in that module. We will be looking at subjunctive triggers. So these are particular words or situations which mean that you need to use the subjunctive. And then we also have a module on the subjunctive tenses that comes after our subjunctive triggers. And then possibly everyone's favourite module, how to sound more Italian, module 6, which will be happening in March of next year. And that's on sounding more Italian. So each of these modules will happen over the course of a month. And the first one starts tomorrow with the 1st of October. So that's tense mastery beginning tomorrow. Now the schedule, let me see if I can bring this up. I'm just going to go full screen here. So I think if I do this, you should be able to see a schedule. It's quite difficult to see, but you can hopefully see this is an example with October. So you get a lesson on the 1st of October, then lesson 2 on the 4th of October, and then there should be lesson 3 on the 8th of October, and then another activity on the 11th of October, lesson 4 on the 15th, lesson 5 on the 18th, then we've got a video review and a checklist and a test that happen towards the end of the module. So every module works the same way. You've got 5 main lessons, and those 5 main lessons progress over the course of the month, building on what you've done previously. And in between the lessons, we also have the activity and then the follow-up materials like the checklist and the review. And that happens for 6 months. And you've got the test at the end of each module, and of course a test at the end of the whole masterclass to show you how much you've learned. Now the target audience, again, I'm going to go full screen here because we've got a slide that helps to explain this. The target audience of the masterclass is around the B1, B2 level of the European Framework of Reference. So you'll see that the European Framework of Reference goes from A1 all the way up to C2. In fact, C2 is beyond this road that we've got here. This roadmap takes us to C1. But the masterclass lies around B1, B2. So if you're wondering, is that me? Then basically B1, B2 would be around the level of Coffee Break Italian Season 3. If you've worked through our Level 3 course, then this is perfect for you. So it really is pushing into B2, and even in some cases beyond, and we can work through the content at that level and move on from there. So that's the target audience. The pricing, the 5 lessons per month, the bonus activities, the module test, email check-ins, the guaranteed feedback that you get from our tutors like Carolina and the rest of the team, and of course a course certificate at the end. The normal price of this is $649 for a one-off payment for the whole 6-month course. But there is a special offer on this week, bringing that down to $499. And again, that covers you for all of that feedback with the tutor support, the opportunity to ask questions, and all of the lessons that we'll be covering over the course of the 6 months. There's also an option to pay monthly, and that is 6 payments of $129, and that's down to $99. So for just $99, you can take this course over the next 6 months, paying $99 per month. And those are the main things I wanted to share about the Coffee Break Italian Masterclass. The questions that you have been asking, we'll be dealing with these now. But if I just come back to this button here, I think we should be both back on the screen. What we'll also do is just put a link on the screen. There we are. So coffeebreakmasterclass.com. If you go to that link, you'll be able to sign up for the Coffee Break Italian Masterclass if that's what you're interested in. But we do have some questions. And it's good also to know that we had lots of 3s in the final section, so everyone is understanding where we're going with the pronoun ne. So, Carolina, can you share some of the questions that we've got from our learners?
Yes, obviously. So one of our learners is asking if the short lessons can be done via audio only, And yes, and adds also, this learner adds that it was so helpful today to see the text, but usually this person can only do audio. So would that still work? Or?
Certo. Okay, I'll explain the format of the lessons. So the lessons are in audio format, actually. So you will be able to listen to the audio while you're out and about, while you're at the gym, walking the dog in the car, or wherever you like to do your learning. And all of that main content for the lessons is in audio format. We've also got some video content, which will help to introduce the module and help to give you a little bit of a review of the module at the end. But the main content is audio. Now, obviously, you will also get the transcripts and all of the lesson notes to help you understand everything that you've covered. So the idea that most learners would do, they would perhaps listen to the audio, work through the notes, and then we've got a second set of notes which are kind of like a reference guide to help you understand the theory and the concepts behind what's been covered in the lesson, and so that you can work through the transcript, and then of course work on with the additional materials later in the module. And it's about the whole experience over the course of the month. So all of these individual lessons that you do build up to help you build your Italian.
Perfetto. I think that was a perfect answer.
Grazie
Then
mille.
we have many questions actually.
Good.
Another learner is asking if one can only do one module.
Okay, so at the moment, no, that's not a possibility. The masterclass is very much a progressive thing. So when you do module 1, the things that you learn in module 1 will then be picked up in module 2 and so on. So what you see in each module is built upon, and then we build that together to the end. So it's a complete course over 6 months.
Okay, then this brings us to the third question, which is if the material will remain online once the course has completed.
Of course, yes. So the materials you'll have lifetime access to the materials. You'll always be able to go back and go through the materials. And I was just talking to one of our previous masterclass users last week, and she was saying that she's so glad that she's got access to all of those materials because she can go back and review.
Of course.
And if she's maybe something that she's finding some difficulty with, she can go back and look at the reference notes, and they are always available. The other thing to mention is the homework activities that you do within the masterclass. Not only is your feedback always there for you to look at, but everyone else's feedback is there too. So you can learn from the good points and the mistakes that other learners have made. And again, that's there for you to follow up on afterwards.
Good. Then another learner is asking if this masterclass is pre-recorded or live interactive for the video segment.
Interesting question. So the main content of the masterclass is pre-recorded. So that's all been recorded, perfectly edited and so on, so that everything sounds great, looks great and so on. Obviously, as you know, when things are happening live, sometimes things can go a little bit wrong. However, there is an additional option with the masterclass this time round, and that we're trying this for the first time, and that is a set of speaking classes that run alongside the masterclass. So there will be 3 classes per module, and those are live sessions where you can interact with your fellow learners and with the teacher in a small group and practice what you're learning in each lesson. To find out more about that and to read the details of that, if you head to coffeebreakmasterclass.com, click on the Italian link, and you'll see there all the details about that element. We've got time for maybe 2 or 3 more questions. Any questions that we don't answer during the live, we'll follow up with answers within the comments. But we've got to watch our timing a little. So maybe a couple more questions.
Yes. So another learner is asking if this will begin again in the spring, and because this is not
the perfect time.
The perfect time.
Okay, so we don't have any dates specifically confirmed yet. We did run a masterclass in February of this year, so running from February through to August or July or something like that. It may well run again in the spring. So if now's not the right time, then now's probably not the right time. So don't do it now. The last thing we would want you to do is get stressed when you're learning, because that doesn't help learning.
Yes. And I don't know, maybe Mark, you want to pick another question?
Okay, yeah,
from
so we've got a couple of questions. Do we have a more advanced level?
Mm.
And if so, how do we find that? So if you've already done this masterclass, we've not got a second level yet. If you've not done this masterclass and you're basing your thoughts on today's lesson, I would say that today's lesson is probably a little more simple than some of the content
Yes.
in the masterclass, because the masterclass does go really quite deep. So do have a look at the page there that's up there, somewhere there. And you'll find out more about the details of what we go into there if you're thinking about the level. Carol's asking how much time needs to be set aside to complete the lessons. So what we find is, again, there's some videos of some of our previous learners on that page, and they say things like I know one of them was saying she's a morning person, so she likes to get up, pours a cup of coffee, does her listening element, and then later in the day perhaps picks up on the reading. But it's the kind of thing that can really fit into your day, even if you're working or if you're busy with other commitments, with family, parents or children or whatever it happens to be. It is very possible to fit this into the day, and that's ultimately what we've always tried to create here at Coffee Break, materials that you can fit into your day and learn.
At your own pace, at your
Absolutely.
own convenience.
Robin's asking, I really need speaking practice. Can I subscribe to the chat sessions only? So these particular chat sessions are very much linked to the masterclass and only are available for people who are currently doing this session of the masterclass. We may run separate speaking sessions at some point in the future, but not specifically linked to this one.
And also they're asking about the size of the chat lessons.
So the chat lessons, the masterclass chat lessons will be small groups where we'll be working together with a tutor, and everyone will have an opportunity to speak in the session. Again, more information about that on the website. And if you are interested in joining the Coffee Break Masterclass for October 2024 and becoming one of our class of October 2024, then all the information, as I said, is up here. Make sure you check that out. And do so quite quickly, because the class begins tomorrow and we will be closing registration later in the week. Or indeed, if the class is full before then, we'll be closing registration early. So it is the time to decide in the next day or so as to whether or not you would like to be part of the masterclass. Allora, Carolina, grazie mille.
Grazie a te, Mark.
Grazie a
voi.
voi.
Grazie a tutti per essere stati qui.
Esatto. We hope that you give this some thought. Most of all, regardless of everything that we've said about the masterclass, we hope that you've learned something today and you've taken things forward, or if you were already familiar with the pronoun ne, that it's been a useful review of that pronoun.
Exactly.
Grazie mille e